A study published in the Journal of Interdisciplinary Toxicology suggests there could be a link between Monsanto's herbicide called Roundup Ready and the increase in celiac disease in the U.S. and Europe. Celiac disease is an autoimmune disorder where the ingestion of gluten products like wheat leads to damage of the small intestine. The authors of the study propose that glyphosate, the active ingredient in herbicide Roundup, is the most important causal factor in this epidemic. The report states that glyphosate binds to the gluten in wheat and disrupts its ability to be transformed into a much less allergenic form. This can cause long-term problems such as infertility, birth defects, and increased risk of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. However, the study also states that this proposal has not been proven, and further studies of the significance of glyphosate residue in food and water need to be done. Monsanto, the maker of the herbicide Roundup, tells RT the current paper strings together numerous observations, many of which are controversial, incorrect, or poorly established, to assert proposed causation. Here to discuss is Liz Reitzing, co-founder of Farm Food Freedom Coalition. Thanks for joining.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
So can we draw a conclusion between this study here, between Roundup and celiac?
Well, I think this study does offer some important questions that need to be looked at, but as the researchers in the study say, it's not conclusive. Let's look into it more. Let's get some actual on-the-ground research going on this issue and see if we can answer some of the questions that they brought up in this conglomeration of research.
Well, the study does point out that fish that are exposed to glyphosate, they show symptoms that are similar to celiac disease. So do we have any idea of how harmful glyphosate is?
Well, we do have an idea of how harmful glyphosate is because of other studies that have been done on it. The implication on the fish there, with the fish, it was much higher levels than what we're getting in our food from that. Mm-hmm. So it is important to look at this, look at it more, and do some of the research, do it on other animals, and get some long-term studies done on the glyphosate and the effect that they have. This is really important, the long-term studies.
Now, Roundup is used on GMO crops, and the Celiac Disease Foundation has stated that there has been no scientific evidence put forward for a GMO celiac disease link. However, there's been no clinical human feeding trials on genetically engineered food either. So does this study create any advances in finding out the effects of GMOs on humans?
Well, standing alone, it does not. And I don't think the authors intended it to stand alone. They want to see more studies done on this. And one of the important things to note in all of that, though, is that people have an experience when they go off GMOs, including people who are gluten intolerant, and they find that their bodies heal. And one of the most important things that we're looking at right now is that often consumers have no way of knowing if GMOs are in their food or not because there's no label on genetically modified ingredients. And this is one tiny solution we could take to give consumers, just the average consumers, the information they need to empower them to make the choices that they need for their own diets.
Now, although there's been no studies on GMOs and their safety for chronically ill people, do you believe that they're safe for people who have terminal illnesses?
Well, I can speak from experience, and that is hearing from people who are chronically ill, who get GMOs out of their diet, they see an improved quality of life. I think that right there, it is anecdotal, but it's people's real life experiences, and that is something to take into consideration when looking at foods and looking at opportunities for this research.
Now, the authors of this study that were linking glyphosate to celiac disease, they state that further testing needs to be done. You know, we're talking about this. Yeah. What kinds of tests in specific do we need?
Well, we need some independent research done. Institute for NIH, National Institute of Health, for example, or independent scientists who want to take this on, privately funded. We need this private research done. The research coming out of the industry, it's giving somewhat biased results in favor of the product that they're selling. No surprise there. And we also need long-term scientific research done on this. We're getting short-term studies. We're not getting a lot of the long-term ones done.
So you don't think there should be any public funds in these tests, these studies?
Well, if there's an opportunity for that, I think all of these studies put another piece into the puzzle, and we can look at the data. But I think that one of the most important things that we do need is privately funded research on this, because it takes some of the bias out of the whole equation.
But if you also have privately funded research, could those private institutions hold the results from the public?
Well, I suppose they could, but it would be another piece of the puzzle.
Have any scientists or groups started these additional tests? I mean, where are we in the testing phase?
It's really tough in the testing phase because, for example, if we're looking at genetically modified organisms, Monsanto holds patent on a lot of these seeds and the technology, and so it's difficult to do outside studies. So right now, most of the studies are coming from inside the industry. And again, we're missing so much information because we don't know what's in our food right now.
So because they have patents on the seeds, other organizations are not allowed to use them to do studies on them, and the
That's
FDA,
right.
who might have access to them, isn't doing it.
That's right.
Okay. So this was Liz Reitzig, the co-founder of Farm Food Freedom Coalition.